Hi YouTube, so I just did a build of Lego Kit 8088, the ARC-170 Republic fighter from episode 3. It's actually a retired set. It was made in 2010 and I believe it retired about 2 years later in 2012. It's surprisingly a very small build piece-wise, only about 396 pieces, but it's actually fairly large. From wingtip to wingtip, it's almost 19 inches, and it's just about a foot long in length. So it's a nice size build for only having 400 pieces. I happened to dig through my inventory of spare parts and then went on Bricklick and bought a few of these pieces. So this is not built directly from a boxed set, though I did use the Lego instructions for 8088 from their website and just went ahead and bought all the necessary pieces. One thing I did do slightly differently is I did not use the named characters like they did in this particular set. I believe there was Kit Fisto and a named pilot character. Instead, I actually used characters more reminiscent of an earlier 2005 ARC-170 build. I think that was Kit 7259, just to give this a little more of a generic, you know, troops out there in the battlefield kind of look. Plus, I couldn't afford those named characters. I didn't have them in hand, and I just didn't want to pay the prices on Bricklink for them. And one unique thing which I do enjoy is, on top of having a crew of 3, it also has this astromech droid in here, and this is not the actual kit accurate astromech either. This is just a spare clone Lego astromech I had lying around, so I put him in there just to fill in the spot. But I do think it's kind of neat the way he sits in there parallel to the crew rather than perpendicular. So just thought that was a neat little idea. For those of you that don't know, this is kind of a predecessor to the T-65 X-Wing, if you didn't notice by the Sfoils that this particular one uses. So I just always thought it was a beautiful ship, and I just could never afford it. So I decided to see if I could build it on hand. The Sfoils are actually operated by this gear back here, which is tied to a Technic pin and a Technic gearbox, and it's simply rotating it clockwise or counterclockwise, opens and closes the Sfoils completely, or opens them completely. It's really a unique build as you're putting it together, and it does use a couple of Technic pieces that I had never had experience with, but once I did this, I really got to better understand why Technic kits are so popular in and of themselves. Probably the only thing I don't like about this kit is it's a little bit Spartan on both sides where the engines and the wings meet. As you can tell, you can see, and this is how it's actually built, you can see a lot of those internal Technic workings, and it just feels and looks a little unfinished. But, you know, again, this is almost a 15-year-old kit, so it's probably based on what the ideas and technology were at that time from Lego. I'm sure if they rebuilt this, which I hope they do in a new modern kit, I'm sure they would clean up a little bit of these open areas and really give this a more finished feel. But it doesn't really take away from it that much. If anything, it kind of adds to that Spartan look. I just wish that the exposed Technic pins and things like that were actually, you know, either black or gray or something to better make them fit into the overall color scheme. So it's kind of ugly having those Technic pieces sticking out that way. Another thing that kind of bugs me is that although you can't display it fully open, you can display it fully closed, and it does sit flat on the ground when you put it that way, but there are no actual landing gear on it. It's built where it just basically rests on the bottom of the center fuselage and the weapons on the ends of the wings. So that bugs me a little bit. I'm thinking I might go online and maybe look for some ideas to maybe make some custom landing gear to fit on this item, just because I think that would give it a little more of a polished look if I do decide to display it with the Sfoils closed. But as of right now, I'm actually thinking of doing something like you see here, not using a piece of Tupperware, but actually using some clear Lego bricks and maybe setting this up in more of a dynamic display where it looks like it's flying and fully engaged in combat or something like that with the Sfoils open. So that's just something to consider if you're looking at displaying this or building this. again, I really do like the cockpit concept, and I like the way it has the full crew, and it's really neat to see a vehicle with a three-member crew member group like this. But I do have to say that, kind of like those early 2000 builds, the cockpits leave a little bit to be desired. There's not a lot of internal detail in there. And yes, I don't have most of the stickers on here. I was able to find a few parts on Bricklink with the actual stickers on them, but I'm going to have to go ahead and buy some aftermarket stickers if I really do want to fully complete this kit. But even with that, while there's a couple of stickers that would go on there and create a couple of the pilot and crew member screens, there's a lot of just unused space in there, kind of unfinished. So I believe I'm going to go in there probably after this video and clean this up a little bit, maybe use some flats and some grills to kind of make this feel a little more complete and not so just open and bare inside of the cockpits. But again, you know, it is what it is for an early to mid 2000s build. The cockpits as well, while they do close, do have some of that, you know, that gap like we even see on some of the modern kits, like the Mandalorian's, you know, N1 fighter. You have a little bit of that kind of gap. So it's not like it's something completely unheard of, but it is pretty noticeable, especially when you have three of the same cockpit all throughout the build. So, you know, perhaps I'll look at, you know, using some wedge pieces or something along those lines, maybe to try to fill in and clean those areas up. But I just didn't want to go too overboard for this video, just to really show you what it looks like kind of in its as-built from the Lego instructions view. So again, overall, it was a great build. Took about an hour, very easy, used some unique technique, architecture and concepts to assemble. I do wish that there was a little more of the coverage of some of the internal pieces to kind of do away with some of that ugly internal gear workings, but again, that still happens even in some of the modern kits that they do have out there. One other thing of note, I don't know if it's noticeable, I just literally assembled this thing, but there is already a little bit of droop in the wings, and that's because both the wings and the engines are only attached to the fuselage by a couple of internal Technic pins. So there's really not a lot of rigidity throughout the entire wing to give it that you know, internal sturdiness. So if I do display this other than sitting on the ground or on landing gear, if I display it like this, I am probably going to use some clear bricks and stacks just to kind of give these wings a little bit of extra support, so that way both over time and just in general it won't have that appearance of a little bit of a sag to the wings. But overall, again, very easy build. Enjoyed it a lot. If there's any questions, if you'd like to see some pictures or some different angles, or you know, anything like that, or if you have some advice on perhaps maybe customizing this a little more to make it feel a little more complete as compared to some of the more modern builds, please feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to show you any information I can. And also I will be posting about a 2 or 3 minute speed build film of this kit as well. I think maybe it'll also show a little bit of some of the inner workings as I was going through it. But again, any questions, please feel free to reach out. Take care and have a great day.